A quiet storm brews. West Ridge Hospital was known for its high standards in medical care, but the same couldn't always be said about its internal dynamics. Beneath the pristine white walls and state-of-the-art equipment, tension simmered, fueled by unchecked egos and silent biases. The hospital staff bustled through their daily routines, exchanging professional smiles while carrying the weight of unspoken grievances. Dr. Alan Pierce was a name synonymous with surgical excellence. His skills in the operating room were unparalleled, earning him accolades and a reputation as one of the best surgeons in the state. But behind the scalpel, his personality was less than admirable. Arrogant, dismissive, and prone to fits of temper, Dr. Pierce left a trail of resentment wherever he went. His attitude, particularly toward the nursing staff, was a growing concern, one the administration often ignored because of his medical success. In stark contrast, Nurse Erica James, a calm and collected professional, had recently joined West Ridge after years of working in emergency care. Erica, a black woman with an impressive track record, had faced challenges throughout her career. Despite her remarkable qualifications, she often found herself underestimated by colleagues who couldn't see past her position as a nurse. Unbeknownst to most, Erica was more than just a nurse. She was the newly appointed Deputy Director of Medical Operations. She had requested to work incognito for her first few weeks to better understand the hospital's inner workings and build genuine relationships with the staff. Wearing scrubs instead of suits, Erica blended seamlessly into the team, quietly observing the dynamics. Her approach was unorthodox, but Erica believed it was the best way to identify the challenges and strengths of the hospital. For her, leadership wasn't about titles. It was about understanding the people you worked with. A fateful encounter. Erica's first clash with Dr. Pierce happened on an otherwise routine day. She was in the ICU, assisting with patient rounds and double-checking charts to ensure everything was up to date. The team was preparing for a complex case, a patient recovering from a triple bypass surgery. As she finished making a note, Dr. Pierce stormed into the room, his voice cutting through the quiet hum of machines. "Who's handling patient 506? Their blood pressure readings are inconsistent." His sharp tone silenced the room. Erica stepped forward calmly. "Doctor, I just reviewed the file. The readings have stabilized over the last hour, and the team is monitoring closely." Dr. Pierce turned to her, his eyes narrowing. "And you are?" "Nurse Erica James," she replied, keeping her voice steady. Pierce's lip curled into a sneer. "Figures. Nurses shouldn't play doctor. Next time, let someone qualified address the issue." The words stung, but Erica held her ground. "With all due respect, doctor, ensuring accurate records and patient stability is part of my role." "Then stick to that role." Pierce shot back before striding toward the patient's chart, dismissing her entirely. The exchange left a heavy silence in its wake. Erica noticed the other nurses exchange uneasy glances. They were used to Dr. Pierce's tirades, but this one felt particularly unnecessary. A shadow of doubt. As the day progressed, word of the confrontation spread among the staff. Erica continued with her duties, her demeanor calm, but her mind churning. She had dealt with men like Pierce before, but this time was different. His words didn't just insult her professionalism. They represented a deeper, systemic issue she had witnessed far too often. In the break room, she overheard two nurses talking in hushed tones. "Did you see how he treated Erica? That was uncalled for," one said. "I know, but what can we do? He's Dr. Pierce. The board won't touch him," the other replied. Erica sighed inwardly. This wasn't just about her. It was about the culture of fear and deference that allowed people like Pierce to thrive unchecked. A glimpse of resolve. That evening, Erica sat in her modest apartment, reflecting on the day. She stared at her reflection in the mirror, her expression firm. "This isn't about you," she reminded herself. "It's about making things better for everyone." The following morning, Erica walked into West Ridge with renewed determination. She greeted the security guard warmly, smiled at the receptionist, and made her way to the ITU. Her role might be hidden for now, but she knew that sooner or later, her presence as a leader would become undeniable. What she didn't realize was just how soon that moment would come, and how public the confrontation would be. The turning point. Erica James's days at West Ridge Hospital were usually filled with quiet observation, hands-on support, and an effort to connect with the staff on a personal level. However, the previous day's encounter with Dr. Alan Pierce had left her with a simmering determination to take action. She was no stranger to the challenges of dismantling systemic arrogance. But this time, the stakes were personal. Erica knew she couldn't let his behavior go unchallenged, not for herself, but for the staff he routinely disrespected. A clash in the operating room. The hospital was bustling as always, the hum of efficiency broken occasionally by the sound of intercom announcements. Erica was stationed near the surgical preparation area, reviewing the post-operative notes of a patient recovering from a major procedure. As she scanned the notes, she noticed a discrepancy in medication timing. Nurses and junior doctors were rushing around, preparing for a complex cardiac surgery that morning. Erica took a deep breath and decided to step into the operating room prep area to observe the surgical team's dynamics. Dr. Pierce was already in the room, briefing his team. His voice was sharp as he rattled off instructions, his impatience evident in every word. "I want precision today," he barked. "We cannot afford mistakes, people." The team nodded silently, their faces a mixture of focus and tension. Erica watched quietly from the corner, noting how the junior staff seemed on edge, almost fearful of drawing his ire. As the team prepared to begin the procedure, one of the scrub nurses fumbled with an instrument tray, accidentally dropping a clamp. The sound of metal hitting the floor was like a gunshot in the quiet room. Pierce whirled around, his face contorted with anger. "Are you kidding me? Do I have to do everything myself?" He pointed a finger at the nurse, his voice rising. "If you can't handle basic tasks, you don't belong in my OR." The nurse's face turned red, her hands trembling as she picked up the tray and reset it. Erica's jaw tightened. She stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "Dr. Pierce, perhaps the pressure in this room could be eased a bit. A calm environment leads to better focus for everyone." Pierce turned to her, his eyes narrowing. "And who invited you to give opinions in my operating room? You're not part of this team, Nurse James. You should focus on your own responsibilities." Erica held her ground. "My responsibility, doctor, is ensuring the well-being of everyone in this hospital, including the staff you're berating. We're here to support you, not to be targets of your frustration." Pierce's expression darkened, but before he could respond, the anesthesiologist arrived, signaling it was time to begin. The tension lingered in the air as the team moved forward, Erica stepping out to let the procedure proceed uninterrupted. A growing divide. The day moved on, but the morning's incident had created ripples across the hospital. Nurses and doctors whispered in the halls, exchanging stories about Dr. Pierce's behavior. Erica overheard snippets of conversations. "Did you see how Nurse James stood up to him? No one's ever done that." "Yeah, but what's the point? He'll just keep doing what he always does." Erica sighed as she walked into the staff lounge. A group of nurses quickly quieted down when they noticed her presence. She smiled gently and addressed them directly. "If there's something on your mind, don't hold back. I want to hear it." The nurses hesitated before one of them, Maria, spoke up. "It's just, you're brave, standing up to Dr. Pierce. But we've seen how this goes. The board won't do anything, and he'll keep making life miserable for us." Erica nodded thoughtfully. "I understand why you feel that way. But change doesn't happen overnight. It happens because people like you refuse to stay silent." Maria glanced at the others, her expression softening. "Maybe. But it's hard." "I know," Erica said, her tone earnest. "But remember, we're stronger together. If we stand up for what's right, even someone like Dr. Pierce can't silence us." A patience crisis. Later that afternoon, Erica was called to the ICU for a patient who was experiencing complications after surgery. The patient, an elderly man recovering from a bypass, had developed a sudden arrhythmia. The ICU team was working frantically to stabilize him, and Erica jumped in without hesitation, reviewing the chart and issuing directives. "Let's start an amiodarone drip," she instructed the charge nurse. "Prepare for synchronized cardioversion if his rhythm doesn't stabilize." As the team worked in unison, the patient's vitals began to improve. The tension in the room eased as his heart rate normalized, and the staff exchanged relieved smiles. Just as the crisis passed, Dr. Pierce stormed into the room. His face was a mask of irritation. "What's going on here? Why wasn't I informed immediately?" Erica turned to face him, her demeanor calm. The patient's condition was critical, and the team responded promptly. "He's stable now." Pierce glared at her. "This is my patient. You had no right to intervene." Erica's expression didn't waver. "I intervened because it was necessary to save his life. The team acted under my guidance, and the outcome speaks for itself." Pierce's voice dropped, but the venom in his tone was unmistakable. "You're overstepping, Nurse James. Stay in your lane." Before Erica could respond, the charge nurse spoke up. "With all due respect, Dr. Pierce, Nurse James's leadership just saved this patient's life. Her guidance was instrumental." Pierce shot the nurse a sharp look before turning and walking out of the room, his anger barely contained. Erica sighed inwardly. The conflict was escalating, and she knew it was only a matter of time before Pierce took more drastic measures. The quiet before the storm. As the day wound down, Erica retreated to her office. She sat at her desk, staring at the reports and charts piled before her. Her mind was restless, replaying the day's events. The staff's growing unease, Pierce's relentless hostility, and her own determination to create a better environment weighed heavily on her. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. Mr. Harris, the hospital's administrator, stepped inside. His expression was serious but sympathetic. "Erica, we need to talk." She gestured for him to sit. "I assume this is about Dr. Pierce." Harris nodded. "Word about your confrontations is spreading. The board is aware, and they're starting to ask questions. Pierce's behavior has been a problem for years, but now it's reaching a breaking point." Erica folded her hands on the desk. "Then it's time for the board to take a stand. He can't keep treating the staff this way." Harris sighed. "I agree, but you know how this works. Pierce's surgical success gives him leverage. The board is hesitant to act unless there's undeniable evidence." Erica's resolve hardened. "Then I'll give them that evidence. This isn't just about me. It's about the culture of this hospital and the people who work here. We deserve better." Harris gave her a long look before nodding. "You've got my support, Erica. But be careful. Pierce is influential, and he won't go down without a fight." As Harris left, Erica leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. She knew the days ahead would be challenging, but she was ready. Change was never easy, but it was necessary, and she was determined to see it through. The catalyst for change. The following morning, Erica James arrived at West Ridge Hospital earlier than usual, her steps purposeful as she made her way through the sterile, brightly lit hallways. The quiet hum of the hospital was a stark contrast to the storm brewing within its walls. After the previous day's events, Erica knew she couldn't afford to let the tension linger. Dr. Pierce had grown bolder, and his behavior was no longer just a personal affront. It was a liability for the hospital and its staff. The anonymous letter. As Erica entered her office, her assistant, Lydia, was waiting, holding a manila envelope. Her expression was a mix of curiosity and concern. "This came for you this morning," Lydia said, handing over the envelope. Erica frowned, accepting it. "No sender." Lydia shook her head. "Nope, just addressed to you." Erica opened the envelope cautiously, pulling out a neatly folded letter and several pages of attached documents. Her eyes scanned the first lines, and her stomach twisted. The letter was an anonymous note from a group of staff members who had worked under Dr. Pierce over the years. It detailed instances of his inappropriate behavior, including bullying, verbal abuse, and actions that bordered on negligence. The attached documents were dated complaints, internal emails, and even notes from exit interviews, all highlighting the same patterns of behavior. The last line of the letter read, "We trust you to do what's right. Please don't let this go ignored like so many others have." Erica set the letter down, her hands trembling slightly. It wasn't just her experience now. This was a pattern, a deeply rooted problem that had festered under the surface for far too long. The staff meeting. By mid-morning, Erica had organized an emergency meeting with her department leads, including charge nurses, senior doctors, and support staff representatives. The small conference room buzzed with subdued conversations as the staff filed in, their expressions a mix of curiosity and apprehension. When everyone was seated, Erica stood at the head of the table. She placed the anonymous letter on the table, the weight of its contents visible in her stance. "Thank you all for coming on short notice," she began. "I've called this meeting because something was brought to my attention this morning, something that concerns every one of us." She explained the letter, summarizing its contents without revealing unnecessary details. As she spoke, she watched the reactions around the table. Some nodded, their faces a mix of relief and vindication, while others shifted uncomfortably. "This isn't an isolated issue," Erica continued. "It's clear that Dr. Pierce's behavior has had a significant impact on this hospital, and not just recently. These accounts span years. I need to know, have any of you witnessed or experienced similar situations?" A tense silence followed, but slowly hands began to rise. Maria, the young nurse who had spoken to Erica before, was the first to speak. "I've seen him belittle staff in front of patients more times than I can count," she said, her voice trembling. "It's humiliating, and it makes us doubt ourselves." Another nurse chimed in. "He threw a surgical instrument at me once when I handed him the wrong clamp. He said it wasn't sharp enough for him to notice, so it wouldn't hurt." Erica's jaw tightened. She turned to Dr. Samuels, a senior physician known for his calm demeanor. "Dr. Samuels, have you observed anything?" He hesitated before nodding. "Pierce is a skilled surgeon, but his temper makes it difficult to work with him. He's burned bridges with nearly every department. Some of us avoid him whenever we can." The floodgates had opened. One by one, the staff shared their experiences, painting a picture of a toxic work environment that had been ignored for far too long. Erica listened intently, her resolve hardening with every word. When the room fell silent again, she addressed them. "Thank you for your honesty. I know how difficult it is to speak out, especially against someone as established as Dr. Pierce. I promise you, this will not be swept under the rug." Confrontation in the ward. Later that day, Erica made her rounds in the ICU. She was checking on a post-operative patient when Dr. Pierce strode into the room. His presence was commanding as always, but Erica noticed a stiffness in his movements, as though he sensed the tide turning against him. "Nurse James," he said, his tone sharp, "I see you're still overstepping. You might want to leave patient management to those of us with actual medical degrees." Erica straightened, her gaze steady. "Dr. Pierce, my role is to support this team and our patients. That's exactly what I'm doing." Pierce's lips curled into a sneer. "Support? Is that what you call meddling? You're making things worse." Before Erica could respond, Maria, who had been quietly monitoring the patient's vitals, spoke up. "Dr. Pierce, Nurse James has done more to support this team in a few weeks than I've seen in years. She's not the problem here." Pierce's face darkened, but he didn't respond. Instead, he turned on his heel and left the room, his coat flaring behind him. The tension lingered long after he was gone. The turning point. That evening, Erica met with Mr. Harris to discuss the growing situation. She handed him the anonymous letter and recounted the staff meeting. Harris read through the documents, his expression grim. "This is damning," he said finally. "The board can't ignore this. We'll need to present it at the next meeting. Erica nodded. Agreed. But we need to act now. The staff is losing faith, and morale is crumbling. If we don't address this head-on, we risk losing some of our best people. Harris sighed. You're right. I'll schedule a meeting with the board for tomorrow morning. In the meantime, I suggest you prepare for whatever Pierce might throw at you. He won't go down quietly. The calm before the storm. As Erica left the hospital that night, she felt the weight of the day pressing down on her. She knew the battle ahead would be difficult, but she also knew she couldn't back down. The voices of her colleagues echoed in her mind, a reminder of why she was fighting. Before heading home, she paused outside the hospital, looking up at the glowing windows. This place was more than a workplace. It was a lifeline for the community. She would do whatever it took to protect it, even if it meant standing alone against one of the most powerful figures in the hospital. What she didn't know was that Dr. Pierce had already begun orchestrating his next move, a move that would force Erica to put everything on the line. The brewing storm. The hospital's walls seemed to hum with anticipation the next morning. Staff members moved quickly through the corridors, exchanging uneasy glances and whispers. Erica James could feel the tension the moment she stepped into the building. The air was charged with something unseen but palpable, a storm about to break. After her conversation with Mr. Harris, Erica had spent the night preparing for the upcoming board meeting. She had reviewed the evidence against Dr. Pierce, outlined her arguments, and rehearsed responses to potential pushback. But no amount of preparation could fully brace her for the twists that awaited her. A sudden announcement. As Erica approached the ICU to begin her rounds, she noticed a crowd gathering in the main corridor. At the center of the commotion was Dr. Pierce, flanked by two senior administrators. He stood tall, his expression calm but calculated. Attention, everyone, Pierce announced, his voice commanding as he addressed the staff. I've called this impromptu gathering to share some concerns that have come to my attention. Erica's heart sank. She knew immediately that this was another one of his tactics. She pushed through the crowd, her presence drawing murmurs. Recently, Pierce continued, there have been reports of disruptions within our operations, instances where individuals have overstepped their roles, compromising patient care and staff efficiency. His eyes scanned the crowd, lingering briefly on Erica. This is unacceptable in a hospital of our caliber. I've submitted these concerns to the board and trust they will act swiftly to restore order. Erica felt her pulse quicken. She couldn't stay silent. Stepping forward, she addressed the crowd directly. Dr. Pierce, if you're referring to me, I suggest we address this transparently rather than through vague accusations. Pierce's smirk faltered for a moment, but he recovered quickly. Transparency is exactly what I'm advocating for, Nurse James. I believe we all need to stay within our lanes for the hospital to function properly. Erica held his gaze. Then let's talk specifics. I've taken action to support the team and ensure patient safety, actions that were necessary and effective. If you see that as overstepping, perhaps we should reevaluate what leadership truly means. The crowd was silent, the tension thick. Pierce seemed to weigh his next words carefully. But before he could respond, a voice from the back interrupted. She's right. All eyes turned to Maria, the young nurse who had become an unexpected ally for Erica. Her voice was steady, her expression resolute. Nurse James has done nothing but support us. If anyone's compromising this hospital, it's not her. A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. Some nodded in agreement, while others exchanged uncertain glances. Pierce's jaw tightened, but he said nothing more. Instead, he turned and walked away, his coat billowing behind him. The crowd slowly dispersed, but the unease lingered. Erica knew this was far from over. The boardroom showdown. Later that morning, Erica walked into the boardroom with Mr. Harris by her side. The atmosphere was tense, the board members seated around the long table with serious expressions. At the far end of the room sat Dr. Pierce, his demeanor calm but watchful. "Thank you for coming," said Mr. Jenkins, the board chair. We're here to discuss the recent concerns raised by both Dr. Pierce and Nurse James. Pierce was the first to speak. His tone was measured, but his words were laced with criticism. I've outlined instances where Nurse James's involvement has disrupted our operations. While her intentions may be good, her actions have blurred the lines of authority and created confusion among the staff. Erica listened, her expression neutral. When it was her turn to speak, she addressed the board with calm confidence. I appreciate Dr. Pierce's perspective, she began, but I must challenge his characterization of my actions. Every decision I've made has been in response to immediate needs that required swift and decisive action to protect our patients and support our team. She presented the anonymous letter, carefully redacted to protect the identities of the staff who had contributed. This isn't just about me. It's about a culture of fear and intimidation that has persisted for years. The staff deserves better, and the patients we serve deserve a team that works together, not one divided by hostility. The board members exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of concern and contemplation. Mr. Jenkins leaned forward, his voice measured. Dr. Pierce, do you have a response to these claims? Pierce's expression darkened. These so-called accusations are exaggerated and lack context. I've always held my team to high standards, which is why my outcomes speak for themselves. Erica met his gaze, unflinching. High standards don't justify mistreatment. Leadership is about lifting your team, not tearing them down. A staff united. As the meeting continued, Erica noticed a subtle shift in the board's demeanor. While Pierce's reputation had shielded him for years, the evidence against him was compelling. By the time the discussion concluded, the board had agreed to launch a formal investigation into the allegations. Leaving the boardroom, Erica felt a mix of relief and exhaustion. But the day's challenges weren't over. When she returned to her office, she found Maria and a group of nurses waiting for her. We just wanted to say thank you, Maria said, her voice filled with emotion, for standing up for us. Erica smiled, her exhaustion momentarily forgotten. This isn't just about me. It's about all of us. Together, we can change the culture of this hospital. The breaking point. That evening, Erica received an email from Mr. Harris. The investigation into Dr. Pierce would begin immediately, and staff members would be encouraged to come forward with their experiences. It was a step in the right direction, but Erica knew it was only the beginning. As she prepared to leave for the day, she received an unexpected message from Dr. Pierce himself. The subject line read, "A final word." Erica opened the email cautiously, her heart pounding. The message was brief but chilling. "You've made your move, Nurse James. Now it's my turn." Erica stared at the screen, her resolve hardening. She didn't know what Pierce had planned, but she was ready. Whatever storm he brought, she would face it head-on. The battle unfolds. The morning after Dr. Pierce's ominous email, West Ridge Hospital was abuzz with attention that hung like a storm cloud. Erica James entered the building with her head high and her resolve unshaken. She knew that whatever Pierce had planned, it was bound to escalate the already volatile situation. What she didn't expect was just how far he was willing to go. The leaked document. Erica hadn't even reached her office when Maria caught up with her in the hallway, clutching her tablet. The young nurse's face was pale, her voice trembling. "You need to see this," she said, thrusting the device into Erica's hands. Displayed on the screen was an email that had been sent to every staff member at the hospital. The subject line read, "Leadership under fire. A call for accountability." The contents made Erica's stomach twist. It was a carefully crafted attack on her character and qualifications, claiming that her actions had disrupted operations, jeopardized patient safety, and lowered staff morale. Attached to the email were snippets of internal communications, taken out of context to paint Erica as reckless and power-hungry. The accusations were pointed, and though none of them were true, the presentation was convincing enough to sow doubt. "This went to everyone," Maria whispered. "Even the patients' families are talking about it." Erica felt her chest tighten. Pierce had escalated the battle to a public spectacle, weaponizing misinformation to discredit her. She handed the tablet back to Maria. "Thank you for showing me. Please keep an eye on the team. I need to address this immediately." Damage control. In her office, Erica began drafting a hospital-wide email to counter the accusations. Her tone was measured, her words deliberate. To the staff of West Ridge Hospital, she began, "I want to address the recent email that has circulated, which includes false and misleading information about my actions and leadership. Transparency and integrity are core values I hold dear, and I am committed to addressing these concerns openly." She detailed her contributions to the hospital, emphasizing her collaborative approach and the positive outcomes that had resulted from her decisions. She also announced the ongoing investigation into Dr. Pierce's behavior, ensuring the staff that steps were being taken to protect the hospital's values. Before hitting send, Erica forwarded the draft to Mr. Harris for review. Within minutes, he called her. "This is solid," he said, "but you need to prepare for the fallout. Pierce is using the court of public opinion to his advantage." Erica nodded, though he couldn't see her. "Let him. The truth will stand on its own." A crisis in the ICU. As the morning progressed, Erica was called to the ICU to assist with a critical patient. The situation was grim. A post-operative patient had developed sepsis, and the team was scrambling to stabilize them. Erica jumped into action, her focus unwavering despite the turmoil surrounding her. "Let's get an antibiotic drip started," she instructed. "Prep for a potential transfer to the surgical ward if their vitals don't improve." The team moved efficiently under her guidance, their trust in her evident. Erica felt a flicker of pride in their coordination, a reminder of why she had taken on this role in the first place. Just as the patient's vitals began to stabilize, Dr. Pierce entered the room. His eyes swept the scene, narrowing when they landed on Erica. "What's going on here?" he demanded. Erica didn't look up. "The patient was deteriorating. We've stabilized them and are monitoring for further complications." Pierce crossed his arms. "And who authorized you to take charge?" Erica turned to him, her expression calm but firm. "The patient needed immediate intervention, and I acted in the best interest of their care." Pierce's voice dropped, his words laced with disdain. "You're overstepping again, Nurse James. This is exactly the kind of behavior that's causing chaos in this hospital." Before Erica could respond, the charge nurse spoke up. "With respect, Dr. Pierce, her actions saved this patient's life. If that's chaos, I'll take it." The room fell silent. Pierce's jaw tightened, but he said nothing more. He turned on his heel and left, his frustration evident in his stiff movements. The unexpected ally. That afternoon, Erica was called to a meeting with the board. She entered the room to find not only the board members but also Dr. Pierce, sitting with a smug expression. To her surprise, Dr. Samuels, the senior physician who had previously remained neutral, was also present. As the meeting began, Mr. Jenkins addressed the elephant in the room. "We're here to discuss the ongoing tensions between Nurse James and Dr. Pierce. The board has reviewed the recent email and the responses to it. We'd like to hear from both of you." Pierce spoke first, his tone measured but accusatory. He reiterated his claims, painting Erica as overzealous and disruptive. When it was her turn, Erica presented her evidence calmly and methodically. She highlighted the positive outcomes of her interventions and the testimonies of staff who supported her. As she finished, Dr. Samuels cleared his throat. "If I may," he said, drawing the board's attention, "I've worked with Dr. Pierce for years, and while his surgical skills are exceptional, his interpersonal behavior has been a recurring issue. Nurse James, on the other hand, has brought a sense of stability and collaboration that this hospital sorely needs." Pierce's smug expression faltered. Erica glanced at Dr. Samuels, gratitude in her eyes. The board's decision. The meeting concluded with Mr. Jenkins announcing the board's plan to expedite the investigation into Pierce's behavior. He also commended Erica for her professionalism and encouraged her to continue fostering a collaborative environment. As Erica left the meeting, She felt a wave of relief, but knew the battle wasn't over. Pierce had lost this round, but he wouldn't back down easily. The breaking point. That evening, Erica returned to her office to find another envelope waiting for her. Inside was a typed note that read, "You may have won today, but this isn't over. Watch your back." Erica's grip tightened on the paper. Pierce's desperation was growing, and she knew he was capable of anything. But instead of fear, she felt a renewed determination. He could try to intimidate her, but she wouldn't waver. The hospital, its staff, and its patients deserved better, and she would fight for them no matter what. The final reckoning. The atmosphere at West Ridge Hospital was electric with anticipation the next morning. Staff moved through the halls with hushed whispers, exchanging nervous glances. The board's investigation into Dr. Pierce was in full swing, and everyone knew that the outcome would set the tone for the hospital's future. For Erica James, this was the moment she had been preparing for, her final stand against the toxic culture that had festered for far too long. The turning of the tide. Erica arrived early, her steps purposeful as she headed straight to her office. On her desk was a file containing the collected testimonials from staff members, patient records, and her own detailed account of the events leading up to this moment. The evidence against Dr. Pierce was overwhelming, but she knew that facts alone wouldn't be enough to dismantle his grip on the hospital. A soft knock at the door drew her attention. It was Maria, the young nurse who had become one of Erica's most vocal supporters. "You have to see this," Maria said, handing Erica a tablet. Displayed on the screen was a new email from an anonymous sender. The subject line read, "Dr. Pierce's True Colors." Attached to the email were several video clips, footage from security cameras in the ICU and surgical prep areas. The clips showed Dr. Pierce berating staff, throwing instruments, and making dismissive remarks about patients and their families. Erica's eyes widened as she watched. This was the irrefutable proof she needed. "Where did this come from?" Erica asked. Maria shrugged. "No idea. It just showed up in everyone's inbox this morning." Erica exhaled slowly. While she didn't condone the breach of privacy, the videos validated everything the staff had been saying for years. "Thank you for showing me this," she said. "Now we just need to make sure it reaches the board." The emergency staff meeting. Shortly after the email circulated, the hospital administration called an emergency staff meeting in the main auditorium. The room was packed with nurses, doctors, and support staff, all buzzing with speculation about the leaked footage. Dr. Pierce stood at the front of the room, flanked by two senior administrators. His expression was tight, his usual composure cracking under the weight of the evidence against him. "I want to address the recent email," Pierce began, his voice steady but strained. "The footage shared was taken out of context and does not reflect the full picture of the situations depicted." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Erica, seated near the front, stood and raised her hand. "With all due respect, Dr. Pierce, context doesn't excuse behavior that undermines staff morale and patient care." Pierce's eyes narrowed as he met her gaze. "And who are you to judge my behavior? You've overstepped your boundaries from the moment you arrived here." Erica stepped forward, her voice steady. "I've acted in the best interests of this hospital and its patients. Leadership isn't about wielding power, it's about building trust and collaboration." The footage speaks for itself. The room erupted into whispers, the staff emboldened by Erica's words. One by one, other voices joined hers. "She's right," Maria said, standing. "We've all seen how you treat people, Dr. Pierce." "Enough is enough," a senior nurse added. "You may be a brilliant surgeon, but that doesn't give you the right to treat us like we're expendable." The tide was turning, and Pierce knew it. His face darkened as he realized he was losing the room. The board's verdict. Later that afternoon, Erica and Dr. Pierce were summoned to the boardroom for the final meeting. The atmosphere was tense, the board members' faces unreadable as they reviewed the evidence before them. Mr. Jenkins, the board chair, spoke first. "Dr. Pierce, the allegations against you are serious, and the recent footage corroborates the complaints we've received. Your behavior has created a hostile work environment, and that is unacceptable in any professional setting. Pierce's composure cracked. I've dedicated my career to this hospital. My surgical outcomes speak for themselves. And no one is disputing your skills as a surgeon, Jenkins replied. But skill alone does not excuse a pattern of mistreatment and intimidation. Effective immediately, you are suspended pending further review. Pierce stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. His face was red with anger as he stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind him. Jenkins turned to Erica. Nurse James, your contributions have been invaluable during this investigation. Your leadership has not gone unnoticed. Erica nodded, her relief tempered by the weight of what had just transpired. Thank you. I only want what's best for the hospital and its staff. A new chapter. The days following Pierce's suspension were marked by a palpable shift in the hospital's atmosphere. Staff moved with a renewed sense of purpose, no longer burdened by the fear of reprimand. Erica continued her rounds, offering support and guidance wherever it was needed. One afternoon, Maria approached her with a wide smile. The ICU team wanted me to give you this, she said, handing Erica a small envelope. Inside was a card signed by dozens of staff members. The message read, "Thank you for standing up for us. You've given us hope for a better future." Erica felt a lump in her throat as she read the words. She looked up at Maria, her smile genuine. This means more to me than you know. A meeting with the CEO. A week later, Erica was called to a meeting with the hospital's CEO, Dr. Caroline Evans. The seasoned leader had been following the events closely and wanted to personally thank Erica for her efforts. Erica, Dr. Evans began, your actions over the past few weeks have set an example for everyone at this hospital. You've reminded us all what leadership truly means. Erica nodded humbly. I just did what I thought was right. And that's why we'd like to offer you a permanent position as the Director of Operations, Evans said, her smile warm. Your vision and dedication are exactly what this hospital needs. Erica's breath caught. The offer was unexpected, but it felt right. I'd be honored, she replied, her voice steady. A quiet victory. That evening, Erica stood outside the hospital, watching as the sun set over the city. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of challenges and triumphs, but she knew the work was far from over. Change was a process, not an event, and she was committed to seeing it through. As she turned to leave, Maria called out from behind her. Heading home, Director James. Erica smiled at the title. Just Erica, she said. We're all in this together. With that, she walked into the night, ready to face whatever came next. The reckoning. As Erica left the meeting with the board, the weight of the last few weeks pressed on her shoulders. Dr. Pierce's suspension was a major step forward, but the fight to repair the damage he had caused, and to rebuild trust within the hospital, was just beginning. The aftermath. The next morning, Erica arrived at West Ridge Hospital early, as always. The usual tension in the air was gone, replaced with an almost unfamiliar lightness. Staff members greeted her warmly, their smiles genuine. For the first time in weeks, the oppressive shadow of Dr. Pierce's presence seemed to have lifted. Maria caught up with her in the hallway, her eyes bright. Have you seen the staff bulletin this morning? No, Erica replied, curious. Maria handed her a printed memo. The headline read, A New Era of Leadership at West Ridge Hospital. The memo, signed by Mr. Jenkins, outlined the steps the board was taking to address staff concerns, improve workplace culture, and reinforce the hospital's commitment to patient care. They're finally listening, Maria said. Thanks to you. Erica smiled, but her thoughts were still on the challenges ahead. It's a start, she said, but there's still a lot to do. A meeting with Dr. Pierce. Later that day, Erica received an unexpected message. Dr. Pierce wanted to meet with her before leaving the hospital. Despite her reservations, she agreed, knowing it was important to confront him one last time. They met in the empty auditorium where so much of their conflict had played out. Pierce was already there when she arrived, his posture stiff and his expression unreadable. "Erica," he began, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. "I owe you an apology." The words caught her off guard. "An apology?" Pierce nodded, his eyes downcast. "I let my pride blind me to what was happening around me. I thought my skills were enough to justify my behavior, but I see now that I was wrong." Erica crossed her arms, her tone measured. "And what changed your mind?" Pierce sighed. "The staff. Seeing them rally around you, hearing their stories. It forced me to face the impact of my actions. I'd spent so long focusing on my success that I forgot what it meant to be part of a team." Erica studied him, searching for any trace of insincerity. What she saw was a man who, for the first time, seemed genuinely contrite. "Change isn't easy," she said finally, "but it's necessary. If you're serious about making amends, I hope you'll use this time to reflect." Pierce nodded. "Thank you. And for what it's worth, I respect what you've done here, even if I didn't show it." As he left the auditorium, Erica felt a flicker of hope. Redemption was possible, even for someone like Pierce, but it was up to him to follow through. Rebuilding trust. Over the next few weeks, Erica threw herself into her work, focusing on repairing the fractures in the hospital's foundation. She held regular meetings with staff, creating a safe space for them to voice their concerns. She worked closely with Mr. Harris and the board to implement new policies that prioritize respect, collaboration, and accountability. One of her first initiatives was a mentorship program, pairing experienced staff with newcomers to foster a culture of support and mutual learning. Maria was among the first to volunteer as a mentor, a sign of her growing confidence. The changes were slow, but they were steady. Erica could see the difference in the way the staff interacted, the way they carried themselves. The hospital was becoming a place where people felt valued and heard. The celebration of progress. Several months later, the hospital held an all-staff meeting to celebrate the progress they had made. The auditorium was filled with laughter and applause as the team reflected on how far they had come. Erica stood at the podium, looking out at the faces of her colleagues. "This journey hasn't been easy," she began, her voice strong and clear. "But it's been worth it. Together, we've created a foundation of trust and respect, one that will carry us forward." The room erupted into cheers, and for the first time, Erica allowed herself to truly feel the impact of what they had achieved. A quiet victory. That evening, as the hospital quieted down, Erica found herself in the ICU, checking on a patient. The familiar hum of machines and the soft murmur of voices filled the room. Maria approached her, a clipboard in hand. "Long day?" Maria asked with a grin. Erica laughed softly. "The best kind." As she looked around the ICU, she felt a sense of peace. The battles she had fought, the challenges she had faced, they had all led to this moment. West Ridge Hospital wasn't perfect, but it was better. And it would continue to improve because of the people who cared deeply about its mission. As Erica walked out of the hospital that night, the stars above seemed brighter than ever. She had found her purpose, and she knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, she would face them head-on, with courage, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to what was right.